I would now like to introduce our patron, Mike O'Brien. As I'm sure all of you know, Mike was a victim of a terrible miscarriage of justice in the notorious Cardiff Newsagent 3 case in 1987. He was wrongly imprisoned for 11 years and will share some of his experiences of both the flaws in the criminal justice system and the problems exonerated people face on their release from prison.
Well, I gotta be honest with you, I don't really want to talk about my case, and I'll tell you the reason why. I'm more interested, I'm here for Jeremy today. My case is well documented. If you want to have a look online, if you want to know about my case, it's all there. I want to explain, when I was in Long Lartin prison, I was on D wing, on the wing, and I remember Jeremy actually coming on the wing, and he was 2 doors away from me, and everybody was fascinated by him, because they've seen all the press and people, and what struck me with Jeremy, I struck up a little friendship with him, and one thing I did notice, he stood out like a sore thumb. He did stand out like a sore thumb. He didn't fit in with the norm, and I got to be honest with you. When he told me he was innocent, I was prepared to listen because I was an innocent man myself. Anyone who says they're innocent, you've got to give them a chance to put their side of the story in. Put all the stuff from the newspapers out of your thinking. And I quickly come to the conclusion that Jeremy was innocent for a number of reasons. He just couldn't have done it, and he wasn't that type of person. He was so gentle, when you read in the press, and Carol Ann Lee's book and the nonsense which she sprouted out is just unbelievable. That's not the Jeremy I know. So, I done 11 years. I was in that prison for 7 years with Jeremy, and I went on a hunger strike. Jeremy joined us as well. We went on a hunger strike at Christmas time to protest our innocence and stuff like that. I think it was the first time prisoners have ever coordinated a hunger strike throughout the prison system. There was 20 in Gartree prison on hunger strike, 15 in Long Lartin, 10 in Bristol, and it's the first time it's ever been done before, and Jeremy was part of that. And I'll take my hat off to him. He stood by us, do you know what I mean? And we stood by him, because all miscarriages of justice victims stand together. That's how it was in Long Lartin prison. I mean, Mike Shirley was in there. He done 15 years. He's now out. I mean, there was George Long, who done 14 years. He's now out. He was on the hunger strike with us. And there was many others. Some of the Birmingham Six were in there, and they all got released, as you know. Sadly, I'm sad to sit here today to say, nearly 37 years, Jeremy is still in prison, because he should not be in prison. I can wholeheartedly say, in my professional opinion, that he did not do this crime, and I do not care what the haters say. I've seen it all. I've had it all online where people have criticised me. I've been called delusional. I've been called all sorts. And as far as I'm concerned, these people don't even look at the case, don't even look at the evidence. And I think the last comment I seen, there was a woman online said, I think he's guilty. And somebody said, well, on what basis? Just my opinion. Well, you can't, if you went on an opinion all the time, there'd be a lot of innocent people in prison, a lot more than what there is now. And so yeah, there's going to be a lot of criticisms, but I do believe Jeremy's innocent. I've mentioned him in my book, Prisons Exposed. When I wrote the book on Prisons Exposed, it was all about life sentence prisoners, and I said, well, Jeremy's actually he did get a whole life tariff, but he was innocent, and I mentioned it in the book. I took Jeremy over to abroad with me. I had a t-shirt made up, didn't I, Yvonne? 30 years, and we went I'm trying to think where it was now. Armenia, yes, I couldn't think of it for a minute. And we done a lot of TV shows over there, and we went over there with the Innocence Project type thing. We went over there, and they were talking about Jeremy on the shows, which was great because we got him international publicity. So that's my involvement in Jeremy's case. I done a TV documentary 2003. I mentioned Jeremy's case there, and I was the only one on the programme. It was that biased, it was just unbelievable. I've never seen anything like it. It wasn't a balanced view. They had me there, and you can imagine they were bombarding me from all sides. But I stood my ground because I knew Jeremy was innocent. People ask me, what is Jeremy like? Well, what do they expect Jeremy to be like? He's a tidy guy, in my view, people have said, oh, is he a psychopath? Is he this? Is he that? No, he's not. He's just a normal guy who's had an injustice done to him. And what I feel for Jeremy is he hasn't had a chance to grieve for his family. So he's got, on the one hand, he's lost his family. On the other hand, he's been wrongly convicted. And all he has is us now. We're his family. Because we're the ones fighting for him to get out. Because you've got to look at the longer picture. When he does get out, and I do believe he will get out, he's going to be a hard time to rebuild his life. And this is where we need experts when he does come out, like psychologists, psychiatrists, because I can tell you from my own experiences, when you get the conviction overturned, and he will, I assure you, I do really believe he will, the problems then begin. And I know that's down the line, but that's something I want you to have, to have insight to. A miscarriage of justice doesn't start when he just comes out of the Court of Appeal and everything hunky-dory, you get your compensation and everything's fine. Far from it. I'll give you an example. I've been out 35 years now. I'm still on medication. I still see a psychiatrist, but I'm still here fighting. And that's the most important. And there's a lot of damage which gets done to victims of miscarriage of justice. There's John at the back there. I'm sure he can, vouch that, we're traumatised by what we've gone on. But what keeps us going is helping other people. And, if there's anything I can do for Jeremy, and he knows this, we have corresponded. I'm not the best of letter writers, because I wrote 70 letters a week when I was in prison. And I mean, you can imagine when I come out, that's the last thing I wanted to do is write loads of letters and whatever. But the fact is, the CCRC need to get their, sort themselves out, because I was told by a CCRC person, I won't mention his name, but he told me that when they get the opportunity to send this case back, they would do so, because they were convinced that Jeremy was innocent and he should have won his appeal in 2002. So, that shows the way they were thinking when I spoke to him. So, with all the new evidence he has, why hasn't this case been referred? Because the way I see it, justice delayed is justice denied. I'll leave it at that, and if anybody wants to ask me any more questions, because I know we got to go out and sightseeing and see things. Yeah, well, you know what I mean. See that. Yeah, but you know what I mean. We got to go out and see things. So if anyone's got any questions, please feel free to ask.
Any questions for Mike?
It's a question. It's just when he gets out, where does he want to live? Does he want to go back to his home, or does he want to just start again? Do you have any idea how he feels about that?
I'm not sure, because I'm not in regular correspondence with him as I used to be, because I do a lot of campaigns and whatever. I leave that to the campaigners to sort things like that. I'm not sure. But it is something we have to look at when the time comes, because where is he going to go? Where is his home? These are all the things which are gonna come out, and his family, as far as I'm concerned, and I said this I done a Radio Essex programme with James Whale, and I was asked that question, about Jeremy's family, and I said, where is family now? Because we're all he's got. But rest assured, when he does walk out of that Court of Appeal, we're going to be there for him. And, John at the back is hoping to set up a programme called Life After Life, and I think he'll do it as well, because John is very determined. And it's aftercare when people come out of prison, because when I come out of prison, there was nothing. They give me £100,000 and said, there you go, have a nice day. So what did I go and do? It went to my head. I did all stupid things. I started partying and whatever. We're going to make sure the mistakes I made and the mistakes others have made, Jeremy's not going to go down them roads, because we can already identify all those issues. So at least some positive has come out of the negative from what we've been through, because we can guide Jeremy, and believe me, he's going to need proper help when he comes out. That's all I can say to you. He's going to need... he might think he's okay. I thought I was okay. Yeah, 6 months down the line, I ended up in the hospital, because I was doing too much work fighting for other people, and I hadn't recovered myself. So there's a lot of issues to deal with there when he does come out, but I'm sure with the team he's got, he's going to be all right, you know what I mean? And we've got to look positive on that and look forward to, helping him rebuild his life.
I think this guy has a question too.
So You said that, was it correct, you said that when you spoke to the CRC, they said that they wanted to give him they wanted the opportunity to give him another appeal. Was that correct, what you said? Or did they say that?
I can't hear him properly.
He said when you spoke to someone from the CCRC, they wanted to give him an opportunity for another appeal.
Yes, they do. They believe he's innocent.
So in your opinion then, what you want to say, why do you think he's not been granted? Politics?
I think politics it does play a little part in it because of the nature of the crime, maybe. I don't know. But the fact is, he's got the evidence, and I think, like the Birmingham 6 was politics, wasn't it? The Guildford 4 was politics. But in the end, something's got to give. And I really believe that something's got to give in Jeremy's case because, you know, I don't know all the evidence they got. I know they've got a lot of new evidence, and it's enough to overturn the conviction. There's no doubt about it. You know, the things the jury didn't hear, and that's the most important thing as well. If the jury would have, you know, if we had a jury now and Jeremy was, you know, presented with his evidence now, he would never have been convicted. Probably would never have been charged. And that's what we've got to remember. And I would say Jeremy's probably one of the longest miscarriages of justice victims in British legal history. Let's hope the CCRC do the right thing, because if they don't, rest assured, people like me are going to be on their case. You know, we're not going away anywhere. You know, and there's so many of us who are committed to getting this case referred back to the Court of Appeal, and that's exactly our aim on what we're going to do.
And there's one other traumatising element that I learnt from Mike about being wrongfully convicted. When you come out and they're working out your compensation, incredibly, they deduct your bed and board for the time that you've been in prison, which is to me quite incredible. But I didn't know that until Mike mentioned it a few years ago.
They done it to John as well, didn't they, John?
They took £75,000 off me.
37 off me.
They said I have to agree to it, or if I didn't agree, I would have to take them to court. That would be the High Court, the Appeal Court, and the European Court. I would get legal aid stopped, because they would say, this is how much he's got, and it will come out to that. So I had to agree that the government took £75,000 for board and lodgings, and as me and Michael, he didn't put it in the Ritz Hotel, and obviously that's what happened to every miscarriage of justice that came out. They took all the lodgings. So
not only are you victim of a miscarriage of justice, they're charging you for the privilege, which is extraordinary. Barbara?
Do you want to introduce Barbara?
Yeah, Barbara, do you want to join us? If you...
Come on, Barbara.
Sorry. For those of you who don't know, this is Barbara Stone, who's spoken at our Zoom meetings. Well, no, it's a surprise appearance. But Barbara is the sister of Michael Stone, who I'm sure you've all heard of his case. He was wrongly convicted for the terrible killing of Lynn and Megan Russell a good number of years ago. And his case is now back at the CCRC after Levi Belfield confessed to that particular horrific murder and thereby exonerated Michael. So that case, as I understand it, is still with the CCRC.
Still with the CCRC. We were waiting, just a little update, we were waiting for a single piece of paper, which I believe was held by the local police force. That wasn't forthcoming, but after legal proceedings were started by CCRC, who I have to say have started to turn over a new leaf of late, so there's hope for us all.
Good.
So we're still waiting, so it'll be nearer Christmas. But I did once write to the prison that Mick was in because it was awful, and I reminded them of his duty of care, and I looked up on the internet and sent them a letter that they were providing him with a service under the relevant law, and therefore they were going to charge him when they released him for his bed and breakfast and his food and his bills, and that he needed to have certain so-and-so. And they wrote back actually with a really quite sarcastic letter. that they would be happy to discuss that when he was released. So that's on hold, that conversation. I think they won't.
But as well, you might not be aware there's different levels of innocence. If the Court of Appeal do quash conviction, it doesn't mean you're going to get compensation.
Yeah.
So there's actually a fight going on in Europe at the moment with Sam Allen and Victor Nealon's case, because they were declared, their convictions overturned in the Court of Appeal and didn't get a penny because, like Barry George, they're not innocent enough. So that's in Europe at the minute, trying to...
We're not, it's different for everybody. I don't really know who could be more innocent than another person.
Yeah.
But evidently they're going to be measuring at what point you could have been found innocent or things could have been corrected. I don't really think we're anticipating that's going to apply to us, thank goodness, because every other single horrible rule has done. But if he were ever freed, I think we were... I don't know. My brother also knows Jeremy Bamber, by the way, for those that you wouldn't know that. He's quite a well-known figure in the system, and one that, as Mike said, when they move from prisons to prison, you'll find all the innocent prisoners together. And therefore they're getting to know each other case, and he's also been supportive of him, but he hasn't seen him for a good number of years. My brother's preferring to keep himself ducked down in Durham rather than moving around the system or creating that reason to move him at the moment, so that's where he is. What do you want to talk about then? Is there any questions? Anyone want to know anything? Sorry, I'm caught on the hop here today.
Actually, I'll ask you a question.
Yeah, please do.
How's Mike holding up under the current weight? Obviously, like Jeremy, presumably he must be very anxious to...
He is, and I think it's really difficult, but I think probably like Jeremy, they do quite a lot of things the same. They get up, they stick to their routine, don't they? My brother finds comfort in routine, so he'll get up and have his breakfast, and then he'll go to the gym or the workshop, and then maybe a bit of socialisation afterwards. And he phones me 5 times a day, which is quite endearing, especially when I'm busy. And the barrister, he talks to his barrister every single day, maybe twice a day, even Christmas Day. So that's how he fills his day, and I think he offloads his stress and things as he's going through. But that's pretty much how he is. Other than that, he keeps himself to himself. But at the moment, I don't think there's anyone with him who's saying they're innocent. And he lives on the open ward, actually. The big thing for us is that Levi Belfield's also in the same prison.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, but because, most people who are accused and convicted of killing children or sexual offences against women, they live on what's called the vulnerable persons wings. So actually, Levi Belfield's there, but my brother's always, from the word go, refused to live there, so he lives with the open population now. So they're in the same prison but in different wings,
Right.
which is a good thing, I feel.
Yeah. So any other questions for Barbara? No?
If you're having a cup of tea or afterwards, we can have a little socialise if you want.
I'd just like to say, through
Yeah.
the meetings, a lot of us have heard more about Michael's town, and we've got a lot of good wishes to yourself and Michael. We built up, I must be in February, but I certainly believe he's totally innocent, and the sooner that gets out, the better.
I think so. For those of you who don't know his case, the only piece of evidence against him is what they call a cell confession. So allegedly, my brother not allegedly, he most definitely went to the governor of the prison and said, can you put me in a cell all on my own, where I'm not going to be able to talk to anybody because people are making false allegations and it's not true. So the governor signed a document, which is obviously entered as evidence at a later date, saying that you're in a cell where you can't talk to anyone. So on the night of his arrival in this particular prison, there were like several hundred prisoners screaming at him, kill yourself, you nonce, and all the very unsavoury things that prisoners apparently do when they don't like the prisoner coming in. But in amongst this, my brother went, psst. Now, there's a pipe between the cells that carries the hot water, the heating, and he apparently went, psst. Smashing eggs is like bashing heads. So there's hundreds of people screaming at the same time, remember? And then he made a reference to the dog made more noise than her, whispered. And there was one other comment that eludes me now, and that is the basis of the confession. That is the only evidence that there has ever been against my brother. It seems like the more serious the crime, the less evidence you need. The less evidence you got at conviction, the more you need when you get to the CCRC. I think it's a point that our team are going to challenge now legally, because there's just is nothing. There's not even any circumstantial evidence left anymore. So the other thing about Damien Daly, this is the said person who heard the confession, when he gave evidence at the first trial, he was clearly lying. We knew he was lying. But at the second trial, he admitted to lying in the first trial. And he went on to say that when he heard Mick talking to him through the pipe, that the pipe was so hot that he had to put a towel down on the pipe. Now this was the 23rd of September. So we got another order from the governor confirming that the heating's not turned on in a prison until the 1st of October, which is fairly common for all common government buildings. So, but still he was convicted. And we can't go to the Court of Appeal now with any evidence that says Damien Daly's lying, because last time we were at the Court of Appeal, in their judgment, they said that it wouldn't matter what you said, Damien Daly is a liar. He said he's a liar. He said he lies every day to get by in life. So the jury convicted on the knowing that he was a liar. So therefore that will stand forever.
And
which puts us in a bit of a position, really.
But I think if I remember rightly, he was subsequently convicted of murder himself.
Yeah, and he's been convicted of murder. In the run-up to him being convicted of murder, he threatened to murder my mother. One of his family members tried to trip her over in the court. I have to take some responsibility, because I took absolute pleasure watching him being sent away, initially for 10 years, and then later he went away for life for murder himself. But more I went because I wanted to know about his family history, to see what it was that... and at the end when they present their mitigation, I wondered if there's anything that would be helpful to me. So I probably shouldn't have done that. But you do all sorts. I mean, if you're sitting here, like Yvonne's sitting here, Mike's sitting here, I've done all sorts. Somebody even took an injunction out against me to stop me talking about cell confessions or any witnesses in my brother's case. So for 2 months, until I could go to the Court of Appeal, I was not able to talk about my brother's conviction. There was a legal ban. And when I went to the Court of Appeal, there was no barristers were available to represent me. The freebies I'm talking about, the helpful ones. So I had to go and represent myself. So they told me everything that I needed to say, what points of law I needed to draw on. I had it all written down. I took my mum along to pass me all bits of paper up, so that I could read them out to the judges. But it started as a very quiet hearing, just me and the other person, and he had a barrister. I didn't have. But when I looked around, nearly all the legal people in the Court of Appeal were sitting in the back of the court watching. Such was the interest. But I got so flustered in there, I forgot to ask for my expenses. That was the only bad thing about it. But I did walk out with the judge saying that he reaped what he sowed, and that as long as I didn't put him in harm's way, that I could say and do what I liked. And I was from then on allowed to speak about cell confessions and about my brother's case again. But it's horrifying to think that somebody could do that to you. For 2 months I couldn't defend him. And that kind of theme has been something that's run through our case. So another thing I did, I can't always say that I do the right thing. I think it's the right thing for me, it's the right thing for my brother. So we thought it'd be a nice idea if he talked to the press. So I don't know if anyone knows that Cat A people have to have their phone numbers that they call cleared for a system of clearance. So my number's cleared, so he wanted to talk to the press. Well, I wanted him to talk to the press, shall we say. It was more that way around. So when he rang, I put him on loudspeaker. So some of you may have heard that on the programmes on the Chillingdon murders. That was done at my house, and our punishment for that was we weren't allowed to talk to each other for 2 months. And that's been, if my brother's upset them at Wakefield, then they've been trying to strip search me. And I just think, what? So the whole of the time through all of this, there's been these little sort of side events, if you like. I don't know if you've had that experience.
They're doing that with us at the minute.
Yeah, there's all these like little experiences you have that are outside the normal. At Highdown in Surrey, a well-known drug user came up and run something down me, or tried to. And my dad, who was 82, picked up his walking stick and said, 1 more inch, but what he was trying to do is strike me so that the dogs would sniff me out and I wouldn't get my visit. Because he was so, I don't know whether you've had this well, I've been into the prison through visits, and all the way through people have been going psst to me. And I've had to walk through the prisons like that, sometimes under armed guard and taken into dark corners for our visits. It's been quite an experience. I don't know really why I'm smiling, to tell you the truth. I'm thinking about the sales of book in the future at the expense of the Home Office, really. But it's bad experience. I mean, we've stuck together and we've found our way through it, really. And I thought he was coming home last month. That's honestly the truth. I thought he was coming home, and now something's gone horribly wrong yet again. So we just have to wait.
Well, it's reassuring to know that the Court of Appeal occasionally do make good judgments. That's good to hear.
Yeah, they did that day, but we won our first appeal quite easily. I mean, it was quick and it was easy.
Yeah. So he got a retrial, didn't he?
He got a retrial, yeah. Because there was another cell confession and the chap withdrew it the next day.
Yeah. Well, he admitted he just made it up.
Yeah, he did. And whenever we talk about our case, we always say all it took was a few well-chosen words. And actually it's about 10 in total, and that's the only things that have got led to his conviction. And the judge was clear about that. It's the only thing that's capable of forming a conviction.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. Right, any other questions for either Mike or for Barbara?
Sorry, what was the initial connection between him being arrested and questioned for the murders, and how did it come about?
Oh, how did it come about? Because he was on Crime Watch. My brother has mental health issues. I deny it if you ever ask me again, because we don't say that he's in there because he's got mental health issues. But the fact is that people in the hospital had a multidisciplinary meeting, and I've sat in on quite a few of those myself of late, and they discussed it. Now, they didn't think the year that Mick was in the hospital, in the 1996 when it actually happened, Mick was in hospital soon afterwards. But at that time, the hospital, they nominated another of their patients as a potential for the murderer. So it wasn't him after he was investigated. So in 1997, when Crime Watch did their second programme on the year-long anniversary, by then they were saying it was robbery was the motive. And because robbery potentially could be the motive, that made my brother a suspect. And the police were saying this could be someone with a psychiatric problem, this could be somebody who doesn't know what they're doing, this was a frenzied attack. I've read every single piece of paperwork. It was not a frenzied attack. There is no way you describe that as frenzied. It took too much organisation, to be honest. So that's how we initially came to their attention.
So was it around that area then at the time?
No, never. No, not that area. When we were 6 and 7, we were in a children's home 4.5 miles away from there. I've since been back there to film, because from that they're saying we knew the area, but we weren't allowed out on our own. I mean, it's very rural, that area. There's no paths, more rural than here, quite very rural. And that's what they were saying, so they said he had links that way, he knew the area like the back of his hand. So there were a couple of people. I wouldn't say my brother was always on the right side of the law, always doing the right thing, but he always did the time for the crimes he committed, that I can tell you. But he was down there some years before. He said a different area he pointed out, but there's one chap that doesn't like my brother, so he stretched the truth and said they went the rest of the way into the area, but apparently my younger brother was there as well. But the police took out my younger brother to the same places, And he said, no, I've never been here before, I never came here with Mick. So he's saying no. The other bloke said, oh, no, we did. And so from that, they're saying he knows the area like the back of his hand. But actually, no one's ever said that he was in the area on that day, in that year, or even in that decade, to tell you the truth, I don't think. So it happened a long time before that he was supposed, but he denies it. And the first my brother had ever seen of the area was actually at the second trial, when they did allow him to go and have a look. And what's interesting about it is my brother knows a place called, what's the house called? There's 2 goodness stones. There's one near Chillingdon, and there is another one near Chilham, which is the area that my brother knows. So he thought he knew the area, but didn't realise that there was 2 goodness stones. So he, in fact, doesn't know the area. We never established that till the second trial, because it's not like you can go out and have a look, is it? And it's Mount Ephraim. There's a house that you can pay and visit near the Chilham area, the other goodness stone. And then tucked in the woods behind where the murders happens, there's a normal family house, and that's also called Mount Ephraim. So there was this confusion about, did Mick know Mount Ephraim? Did he know? And he said, no, that's not what I know. So he sent me down there to take photos. Go and see. There's a big wall along the bottom and some trees along the top. Can you take photos? So I had to go and take photos, and that's how we found out there's actually 2 Mount Ephraims down there, coincidentally. So no, he's never been to the area at all.
But if you're interested in more background on the case, there was the excellent programme Barbara mentioned, Chillingdon Murders, a 2-part series that's well worth watching. So
it does cover quite a bit, really, and my brothers Warts and all are in it. But yeah, I mean, I sit here for 25 years now. I've supported him. The day he was convicted, I went straight out on the steps and was held up by the security guard while I said he's innocent. If you've got any information, please come forward. And to be honest, for all these years I've been doing that routinely, because it's really helpful. It does bring in new information, I find. The more noise you can make, the more... I mean, I was just walking over, I said to Johnny when I walked up here, I spoke, 3 people I spoke to on the way through this village. Where were they that day? Where were they? Or is it's just a day there's people around? But you know, you put out appeals and look for information. Somebody think, I was walking my dog then. Sometimes it really is worth the effort.
Right, any other questions for Mike or Barbara, or on anything else before we...
The fact all this is going on, there are so many innocent people serving time, even after a long period of time, like Jeremy. Does that not colour your view on justice? Is there such a thing as justice still?
Well,
do you want me? I don't really think there's such a thing as justice, but Michael's had some. But he's only partially had it in my view, but he'd say he got justice. I don't, you know, justice is accountability too. I don't think anyone said sorry to him.
You go to the highest court of land, the Old Bailey, what's written on the wall outside, justice for all.
Yeah, but what is justice? You've got to measure what it is. Is justice, that's an apology, that's a look at the errors, that's putting right their mistakes. That would involve re-investigations, accountability. I have never seen none of that, not for him and not for Johnny, not for anyone. Yeah, so you can give a man nearly £1 million and he probably was a really poor man before he went in prison. Even that's not justice, is it?
But also, incredibly, there's no legal way you can actually have yourself declared innocent, apparently, according to Jeremy's lawyer, Mark Newby. You can have your conviction quashed or overturned, but in legal terms, that doesn't, strictly speaking, make you innocent.
The Court of Appeal aren't interested in guilt or innocence. They're only interested in the point of law. So, is this conviction sustainable of points of law, or was there an error at the trial, or they are not interested whatsoever in evidence of innocence.
So the fact that if you could have like multiple judges on the same case, like a conglomeration of judges all making a consideration on the evidence available at any time, would that not make less chance?
In Jeremy's appeal, Well-
take other things into consideration, you're more likely to wind up with a more justified view of something than just one person.
Well, I agree. In theory, that's true. But in the 2002 appeal, if I'm right in saying there were three Court of Appeal judges,
And they still all agree.
they all came to the same wrong decision. So unfortunately, that in theory is a good plan, but doesn't work in practice.
And that's going to be very difficult for some people to even get that so they can go on with their lives in a normal way. I think, you know, to be honest, I think people like my brother and perhaps Jeremy, they might escape that side of it, just simply because there's been opportunity for those wrongs to be rights, and both cases have been overridden by their high public profiles, if you know what I mean. In a way, they're political prisoners, in my view. You know, for them to come out.
I mean, you know, whatever going to happen, it's going to be on the news, it's going to be in the media, everyone's going to know.
It'll be news flashed if either of them walk out. Everything about my brother's been a news flash. And they will be, and that will be the same for Jeremy as well. It will be on there, released. And then they start to look over it. I mean, this business of the suicide, that's unbelievable, isn't it?
I know, yes.
I lived in Kelvin, which is not far from the Bambers and everybody. They used to socialise as a group in farmers.
Yeah.
And the fact that Jeremy never really fitted in with anybody in the area because of the way he dressed, his lifestyle, his opinions on things, people sort of looked at him in a different way. And like you say, he was on the periphery of everything, he wasn't really inclusive.
Yeah, that didn't make him a murderer though, did it? That just made him different to everybody else.
People slightly viewed what's going on. Because he didn't fit in, he wasn't like all the other people that used to go to the social club in Kelvin and all the rest of it. They formed a wrong opinion of him right from the start, but that they also carried on thinking along those lines, even though when it became a problem, he may not have done it. They're still holding the fact that because he was a bit of a weird one or didn't fit in with everybody, he could well have done it.
Just out of interest, is the local view that he's guilty?
I think that what the problem is that there's this the family, you know, the family are the guilty ones here of all the, you know, like messing around and pointing. Never mind what you look like or lifestyle or whatever. It's the family.
I'm talking about the reason why the locals all hold that against him. The bride
Yeah, I know. Are we having
evidence.
I'm quite interested now actually. I'm quite interested in those of you that live local. Do you know a lot about the case? Did you know Jeremy? Are you supporters of him, or are you just here to sort of find out more?
I was dating a girl back in the day who was friendly with Jeremy Bamber's girlfriend. He sold their story to the papers.
Yeah.
Made a fair bit of money out of it, and half of it was probably anyway lies.
Well, they may not have told that to the press, in truth. The press may have just made that up themselves.
They took it as face value, you know what I mean? She was close to Jeremy Bamber, therefore what she said was gospel. And they swallowed it hook, line and sinker, even though everybody in the area knew that half of it was rubbish. The press was relaxed.
It's strange, isn't it, that the people in the area that know it's rubbish, they don't speak out. Do you think it's that because they don't want to be involved and don't want to be accountable in any way?
Well, what happens when you're different?
Yeah.
You speak out, a guy who's slightly different got put in jail for 30 years.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to go against the grain because of what happens in
No, I agree. And my experience, I mean, I'm a family member of somebody wrongly convicted, so that sets me apart a little bit from Mike and Johnny. But if you were to honestly ask me, I think there's always something a little bit different about the people who are wrongly convicted.
In fact,
They always done a little thing wrong that they've been sussed for, which is going to create an ill feeling, or they're a little bit outside the box to start with.
I think the locals don't really sort of speak out against anything that's plainly wrong or been said wrong or explained wrong. It's because they don't want to be part of that sticky outness, if you like. They just want to conform, keep their heads down and get on with their own lives without as little disruption as possible. So therefore they don't say anything too much.
Would they actually know anything, do you think?
They get
I don't know. Maybe character references wise, maybe. Probably would. Yeah.
So if the area was leafleted, for instance, I'm not suggesting we're going to do that, I'm just saying if the area was leafleted,
Well, yeah.
Would people respond? People that you wouldn't think, or
Probably now, over and over a period of time.
You think
We're not
so?
the same people as we were back then. You know, like you say, we're 37 years older. We're different people with different outlooks.
That's-
As most of the locals, they haven't changed any. They're still the same big families that run this little area, landowners, farmers, whatever you want to call them. They haven't changed. The families are still the same members, pretty much. It's just their heads that are altered and not their perceptions of things.
Because sometimes I've noticed. I mean, I did leaflet the area where our event happened, but I have noticed of late. I've even walked down the road and somebody said to me, "I know you," and I said, "Oh, you must do really, because I don't know you, but you know how it goes." So they said, "You're Michael Stone's sister," and I said, "Yeah," and they said that actually, I said, "Did you know him then, or know something about it?" And they said, "No, but I knew Damien Daly really well. That's the chap who gave the cell confession." So it just shows you. Now, she was in the grips of the drug world with him for a long time, but obviously has turned over a new leaf now, or recovered, whichever phrase you want to use. And she was quite willing to speak to me, and I just thought, 34 years later, you've got even longer, 37 years later, haven't you?
Yeah.
But I'm just curious, that's all.
Anyway,
Mr.
sorry.
Kamara.
Sorry, John. Sorry, we'll have to keep an eye on the time, I'm afraid, because we're going to be chucked out fairly soon. So,
if you want to lend your support to Jeremy Bamber, you can write to him in the UK using the number A5352AC, HM Wakefield, 5 Love Lane, Wakefield, WF2 9AG, or see our website for details at www.jeremy-bamber.co.uk.